Story 1. It's like loving two people in the same body, one who dreams with you and the other who disappears into the storm. Patience, communication, and empathy are not optional. They are lifelines. Story 2. There are multiple types of mental illnesses, and like most, they exist on a spectrum. When I was unmedicated, I was not a pleasant person to be around. During my depressive episodes, it was difficult for me to engage in activities or communicate with others. When I experienced hypomania, I was also depressed but felt very angry and irritable. Although I never became physical, I had a short temper and could yell loudly, which might have been intimidating due to my size. Now that I am stable, medicated, and in therapy, I am becoming the person my partner always hoped I could be. I maintain stability, medication, and therapy not only for my spouse but also because it has greatly improved my life. I still cycle occasionally, but I understand my triggers and how to manage them. If a person is managing their illness well, it is likely fine. However, if not, it may not be an enjoyable experience. Additionally, be aware of potential substance abuse issues. Story 3. You will feel happy and content in your relationship, but then suddenly you are no longer in a relationship. Story 4. I have schizoaffective disorder and have been around people with bipolar disorder quite a bit. It mostly depends on where they are with treatment, medication, and mindfulness. You can live a stable, relatively normal life with bipolar disorder, but if you are at the start of your treatment journey and don't have a grip on things, it can be very challenging. Story 5. Highly dependent on the individual. My last partner didn't trust doctors and would only resort to medication after a manic episode, then abruptly stopped taking the medication again when he felt better. He significantly affected nearly every aspect of my life in permanent ways. My current partner goes to his doctor regularly, takes medication as prescribed, attends therapy, tracks his symptoms, and addresses them immediately with the help of a medical professional. He is also careful to communicate to me when he notices he's experiencing mood swings so I can be prepared, and he is open to having me express my observations or needs. Honestly, I feel safer with him than with someone who is neurotypical because he is so mindful of how he manages his health and how he treats me. In short, the condition matters much less than how individuals choose to deal with it. Story 6. I had to deal with it for 2.5 years. It was incredibly difficult, with many mood swings paired with frequent suicidal thoughts, particularly in my ex's case. Moments of happiness could turn into nightmares in seconds, and over time, these nightmarish episodes became more frequent and severe. One of the worst aspects of this experience is that no matter how hard you try to help your partner, ultimately you just can't. This was my experience. I believed I could help her and sacrificed a lot, but it was all in vain. I would not attempt to fix someone like that again, not out of selfishness, but because I have learned to respect myself. The relationship put me in a terrible state, not only due to her condition, which played a significant role, but it took a lot of effort to get back on track emotionally and mentally. Story 7. I have a couple of friends who are bipolar. Everyone is different, but you learn to notice the signs and can tell how they are feeling. The most helpful thing you can do for them is to be consistent. Do not change to suit their moods. Do not get upset when they lash out. It is not about you. Do not try to cheer them up when they are feeling low, and do not try to bring them down when they are feeling manic. Be their anchor to what is considered normal. This will help them recognize when they are off balance and by how much. It will assist them in working on their feelings themselves. Do not tell them they are off. Be the reference point so they can see for themselves. Once you both trust each other, it can be just like any other relationship. Story 8. Married for 20 years, I experienced a serious involuntary hospitalization due to psychosis, along with some near misses. Commitment, a support system, and good insurance are key. I don't know what else to say. It's all very individual. Story 9. My spouse has bipolar I disorder and refuses to acknowledge it. Yes, they were diagnosed. They experienced a full manic episode that caused our marriage to collapse once. Mania can lead to intense infatuation and manic love. It's really challenging. Now they have been manic for over a year, experiencing delusions of reference, and refuse help. I have started the divorce process because they live in a fantasy world, neglecting and emotionally and mentally abusing our children. They gaslight me and become a terrible person when manic. It's like living with an overly emotional teenager. Their maturity regresses and they show little emotional intelligence, being selfish as ever. When they are stable, they are the sweetest and most caring person. The most hurtful thing is when they say to me, "I'd cheat on you if the opportunity arose." In summary, bipolar disorder is a spectrum, and my spouse is experiencing one of its most severe manifestations. Story 10. As the partner with bipolar disorder, I am highly aware of my condition. I don't want it to affect my partner negatively. I received my diagnosis as a toddler, and my disorder either mimics or includes symptoms of attention deficit/hyperactivity disorder and autism. Both disorders were not commonly diagnosed in girls when I was young. Since every emotion growing up was tied to my disorder, I learned to suppress it and not show much emotion. I was quiet as a child. As a result, I sometimes struggle to communicate with my husband about how I feel. I am so accustomed to masking that I forgot how to express myself. I am learning. Story 11. Like walking on eggshells all the time. If they want to confront you, it doesn't matter what you say or do because your very existence is offensive to them. Story 12. It can be difficult and unpredictable, with mood swings and instability. However, with support, treatment, and understanding, the relationship can be strong and meaningful. I really like the series Bra Sick, which features a main character with bipolar disorder. Story 13. It was acceptable until they stopped taking their medication, successfully concealed the fact that they stopped past the point of no return, and then drastically affected the lives of 3 people forever. Story 14. In a depressive state, she was madly in love with me. In a manic state, she wasn't interested in me at all. Story 15. It's great. I can borrow her medication if I run out. More seriously, hers was extremely well controlled on the first medication she tried after her initial episode, and it's really not a part of her life now. I laughed when she recently said that bipolar disorder was easily managed and thus not a concern for our nieces. I suppose I haven't shared my story with her. Living with me is a little harder, but it's mostly under control now. Story 16. It's a roller coaster ride. I have it so I can joke about it. However, my first partner, who had the condition, refused to take his medication and had the police called. He was doomed to fail. Story 17. It is something I will never try again. There is constant emotional manipulation with expectations for your mood to align with theirs, and they get upset if you are happy at the wrong time. Story 18. I have the diagnosis, and reading most comments here has affected my day. Apparently, I am perceived as someone who will abuse others and make life a living hell for those around me. I am heading to bed. Story 19. My brother has it. When he was engaged, I wanted to tell her to turn around, walk away, and not look back. Luckily, she figured it out on her own. Story 20. I definitely would not recommend it. I feel bad saying that because it sounds like I think they should be forever alone, but it takes a very patient and forgiving person to make that relationship work. I am both patient and forgiving, but not to the necessary degree, and I don't think most people are. However, it is possible. Story 21. I have never had a romantic relationship with someone experiencing bipolar disorder, but my brother has it untreated. It is a very toxic relationship, especially if they self-soothe with destructive habits that lead to harmful behavior, both inwardly and outwardly. The good times are amazing, and the bad times are unbearable. There is a lot of heartache knowing and believing in their potential while coming to terms with the possibility that they may never reach it or become their best selves. Because he refuses to seek help and change, I have no idea what it is like to be close to someone trying to work through their bipolar disorder. He has distanced himself from the rest of my family, relying solely on me, which involved emotional abuse and manipulation. Now he has also distanced himself from me. Since this falling out, I can't help but feel relieved from the constant pushing and pulling. I tolerated his behavior for so long because he is my brother, and I didn't choose to be in this situation. Choices exist. Story 22. If you really want to know what it's like being in a relationship with someone who has bipolar disorder, You should consider attending support groups for loved ones of individuals with mental health disorders. The National Alliance on Mental Illness offers these types of groups, along with other organizations. Story 23. Ask my wife. I think it depends on whether the bipolar disorder is successfully managed with medication and whether the individual regularly and consistently takes their medication. Individuals with bipolar disorder who stop their medication can be problematic. I have been symptom-free since 2017 when I started using lithium as my primary mood stabilizer. Substance abuse, including drugs and alcohol, is often associated with bipolar disorder, which is important to consider. Story 24. You will both need therapy continuously. If you haven't spoken with a professional yet, you will. Story 25. It is challenging, but it can be beneficial as individuals with mental illness often engage in therapy and have a professional to assist with relationship issues. Story 26. Independent living with some medical assistance is necessary because lithium has resulted in Parkinson's disease and diminished kidney function. Vietnam veteran. Story 27. Stressful, drives me insane, makes me the happiest person, confuses me, makes me want to crush my head, makes me want to run towards her and away from her, makes me fall out of love with her, and makes me fall in love with her. If you are prepared to expect the unexpected and have a roller coaster ride of a lifetime, do it. Story 28. It's challenging. Even after years of picking up signals, learning triggers, being a cheerleader, or a shoulder to lean on, you will never know what kind of day today will be. Story 29. My partner would say it's amazing. He tells me all the time he has seen me through some challenging situations, but I have also supported him during his toughest times, and he does not have bipolar disorder. We are a team, and it's wonderful. Story 30. Why are people confusing bipolar disorder with borderline personality disorder? They are two different disorders. There can be an overlap of symptoms and they can coexist, but they are not the same. Story 31. Trigger warnings. Abuse and sexual assault. Is it okay if I answer if it concerns my mother rather than a partner? My mother has both bipolar disorder and borderline personality disorder. Growing up, it was hell on earth. My grandmother, her mother, always knew something was off with her. My grandmother once said, I looked into her eyes when she was 2, and I just knew, but no one would believe me. My grandfather didn't want me to seek help because he thought I was to blame. As she got older, after my grandfather had died, I made sure she got help, but she always just stopped showing up at appointments. My grandmother was right. My mother is highly manipulative. She has the best of both worlds, so to speak. Her disorders fuel one another, and she is unmedicated. I tried my best to get her help, but she always stopped showing up at appointments, and she'd proudly sit on the sofa with a smirk on her face and tell me, You didn't actually think I would go, did you? In her manic episodes, she'd completely renew all the furniture, but we were on social welfare, so she'd incur tremendous debt. She hoarded animals and didn't take care of them. She'd rip the wallpaper off the walls, leaving me to fix it all. She'd hide my mail so I'd be unaware of bills, allowing her to spend all my money. She took in a convicted sex offender when I was a teenager and defended his actions. She would scream and cry when she didn't get her way, just to get attention. I'm talking about screaming and crying at her brother's funeral. One she never spoke to, one she never cared about, one she had completely ignored as he was dying of cancer. After the funeral, she convinced one of his friends to give her a free tattoo to honor him. By the way, my uncle wasn't someone who should be honored, as he had shot his girlfriend in cold blood while her 3-year-old son watched. My mother guessed my password and harassed my father, whom I never wanted to speak to, so he'd come over and cheat on his current wives with her. She fantasized out loud about how amazing it would be if I killed myself because imagine all the attention she'd get. Wouldn't that be neat? She said this after my aunt lost her son and noticed how much attention my aunt received for it. She told me she never wanted me, that no one ever wanted me, that I'm useless, that I think I'm better than her. When I was 16 or 17, I cried because I remembered being sexually assaulted when I was little. Her reaction? She wondered out loud whether this would get my father to come over again. Wouldn't that be nice? No, mother, it would not, considering he knew and aided. My mother deserves to burn in hell, and I'm tired of people telling me that she didn't mean to. She's just sick. People are still responsible for their actions. I was 12 and trying to get her to appointments. I'm still in therapy for all the awful things she did to me. Story 32. Depends on how well they manage it. The illness varies significantly from person to person. For context, I have bipolar disorder type 1. I stay on my medication and receive regular therapy, so my symptoms are well managed. All I ask from my partners is to give me space during episodes because I can be quite irritable and prefer to be alone. Usually, I return to normal in a day or two. It takes a lot of communication. You have to be willing to listen to their needs and boundaries while also communicating your own. Have plans in place for when their symptoms become overwhelming. My preference is for my family to care for me when I am really struggling, while I wouldn't expect my partners to take on a caring role. However, in a more serious relationship, you may need to support them if they experience psychosis, but that's not as difficult as it sounds. People with bipolar disorder are just like anyone else. The stigma around it is tough to handle, but dating someone with this condition is not so different from dating someone with any other disability. Story 33. This is simply my personal perspective, not medical advice, on the often fraught topic of being off medications for those of us living with bipolar disorder. I was diagnosed with rapid cycling bipolar I in 2015 at 38, realizing in retrospect that I had been navigating this since around 19. Despite years of various medications and combinations, I rarely experienced stability, enduring frequent, intense manic episodes and generally feeling unwell. However, for nearly 2 years now, I have not taken specific bipolar medications and have felt better than ever. My manic episodes are less severe, and my depressive episodes are manageable. My continued use of olanzapine has been transformative. I take it as needed, either when someone close to me recognizes the onset of mania or when I feel it myself, which I can now identify about 85% of the time. I have not had a full-blown level 12 manic episode in the last 2 years. Looking back, the most significant missing piece in managing my bipolar disorder was genuine support. Instead of understanding, I often faced judgment. You're stupid, you're crazy, and avoidance of the issue. If you have someone with bipolar disorder in your life, please take the time to understand the condition. During episodes, particularly manic ones, their actions and words can be completely unlike their normal selves. My family and partners would often pressure me about taking medication, even when I was compliant, and then dismiss my struggles as irrational or crazy. While I was often aware of my altered state and risky behaviors, logical reasoning was impossible. This lack of empathy created deep divisions and made me feel profoundly alone. If you care about someone with bipolar disorder, educate yourself about the condition, learn to recognize the symptoms, and create a proactive plan for managing episodes. My sister's approach has been invaluable. If she sees me becoming overly excited and senses an impending manic phase, she will take my wallet and money. She insists I take my olanzapine, which has a strong calming effect, and ensures I take it for the next few days. This proactive support, born out of understanding, has prevented immense regret and anger. It's crucial to understand that I am not advising anyone to stop their medication. Finding the right treatment is a highly individual and ongoing journey. While medication is often a vital part of managing bipolar disorder, we need to move beyond simply blaming everything on someone being off their medications. True support and understanding can be just as critical. Perhaps medication isn't the only answer. As I write this, I am recognizing that I should probably take my olanzapine. I digress. Story 34. I dated someone who considered herself a planner. The problem was that when we got close to the planned event date, she would have moments of instability and often cancel, or make excuses for why I needed to cancel if it was my plan. Then, she would turn around and say that we never do anything. I often tried being spontaneous, which she disliked, and it felt like playing Russian roulette with how that would turn out. Sometimes she would be delighted, and her mood would soar for days. Other times, she would become withdrawn, and occasionally she would try to convince me to bring an ex or another female friend instead, putting herself down in the process. I also dated someone with borderline personality disorder, but that experience was significantly more challenging. Story 35. I had a short situationship with someone who had untreated or at least undertreated bipolar disorder. We were old friends who reconnected and were headed toward a relationship. However, after talking for a week and a half, I felt that we needed relationship counseling already. It was miserable for me, and though he wouldn't admit it, he was constantly triggered and miserable too. He did not respect boundaries or me, and I discovered he believed he never had to apologize or do better because of his diagnosis. I gave him several chances before I ended it. This all happened in less than 2 weeks. A whirlwind of dysfunction. I don't know if it's entirely fair to say it was inherently bipolar disorder that caused our issues. I know people with bipolar disorder who maintain healthy relationships. The problem was his inability to be an adult, recognize that he needed to take responsibility for how his actions affect others, and seek more help to thrive in a healthy relationship. Bipolar disorder or not, everyone must be responsible and willing to work on themselves. Those with bipolar disorder face more hurdles than others, and I recognize that it is unfair and I sympathize. However, a diagnosis does not negate accountability. Story 36. I have bipolar disorder type I, but I have been in remission for over 10 years. My partners would not know if I had not told them at some point. Story 37. My dad has bipolar disorder. He is often very happy and joyful, but then something small can upset him, and he becomes grumpy. Whenever my brother and I accidentally make him angry right after he has been loving and joyful, it can be challenging. Story 38. There are long stretches where the person you married is still there, but it's like they are in the next room with a door shut in between. You know they are there, you can still talk to them, but they are not present and engaged with you. Then there are the brief times when they run out of that room, jump all over you, and won't let you go even when you need a breather yourself. You feel guilty for creating space after all that time you wanted them to be closer. If you are lucky, there is a third time when things are normal or what should be normal, though these moments might be rarer than the above. Story 39. It feels like there are two completely different people. One who loves you and one who wants nothing to do with you. Both express their feelings in different ways, and it can become completely overwhelming. Story 40. I'm married and he's great, but sometimes I can be mean. I'm changing medications, which has been especially hard, and he's been incredibly patient. I often feel like a failure as a wife, and although he swears he doesn't think that, I really don't believe him. Regulating my emotions and being married can be challenging, and I can be quite difficult when I'm not balanced. If I'm honest, he's my best friend, and we're happy together. But sometimes I wish I could either believe I am what he deserves or become that for him. I also know that at my best, I am a loving wife who does everything I can to keep him feeling safe. I'm really lucky he understands me to the degree that he does. Story 41. It was very stressful with many sleepless nights, and I was constantly walking on eggshells around them. My ex was a wonderful man before this disorder took over, and he has never been the same since. He has refused treatment for a while now. Story 42. For me, it was terrifying. I had no idea which version of the person I was going to encounter. The medication stopped working, but of course, there is no alert saying the medication has stopped working. You can only tell by observation and experience. One moment, it would be the kind and supportive person I knew for the first 14 months. The next, it would be the paranoid, uncaring version that believed everyone was out to get them. This latter version emptied my redundancy payment from my bank account, attempted to spray me in the face with de-icer, and tried to kick me out of a moving car. The two versions looked and acted identical until they didn't. It was impossible to live with. If you cannot trust someone, you cannot relax around them. And I couldn't trust them. Story 43. Refrain from asking such questions in public forums. Many uninformed and ableist opinions circulate on the internet. Story 44. It's chaotic. Not for me. They do not have plans. Everything they do is spontaneous. They lack a sleep schedule and expect you to adapt to their erratic sleeping hours, which are incompatible with basic human health needs. One day, they expect you to sleep until 4 p.m., then stay up until 5 a.m. and work at 6 a.m. for 3 consecutive days. They often use a lot of substances. They steal. They engage in risky and unsafe behavior with random people without thought. They make impulsive decisions like spending money on things they cannot afford, such as adopting a pet right after losing their job. Everything they do that harms you is justified by their mental illness. Taking care of this person and trying to keep them safe from their own impulsive behavior can become your full-time job. They may expect you to quit your career to care for them. They do not take their medication consistently. They lie about skipping their medication, so you never know which version of them you are dealing with. They exhibit the energy and emotional regulation of a toddler. They randomly get depressed and cry, having mental breakdowns over issues they create in their own mind. They do not care about their health or about eating well or exercising. They are focused on substance use, certain music subcultures, and dive bars. They enjoy spending time with similarly unmotivated individuals but prefer dating well-adjusted people so that they can force you to be responsible for their well-being. They cry about unnecessary things like toddlers. They do not do housework and live in filth. They are the most erratic and unpredictable people you will ever meet. Their emotional reality is detached from what is happening in their life or the world around them. They expect to coast through life with zero effort, having everything handed to them by whoever happens to be in their presence. There is a massive sense of entitlement. They are impulsive. They cheat. They lie and forget they lied, with the truth eventually surfacing. Sometimes they think violence is justified if they are the one engaging in it. They consider themselves superior to others, then view you as a bad person for excelling. They leave appliances on. They steal and pawn items for drugs or leave cash in nonsensical places. They do not plan, refuse to follow any schedule, and do not exert any effort to be accountable to others. They will show up at your house without notice whenever they want, regardless of whether you are okay with it. You are considered a bad person if you refuse them at that moment. It could be 2 a.m. or 3 p.m. They do not care what you are doing because enjoying their mania with you, without consent, is more important. They will take unplanned long drives to other states on impulse and then call you to save them from a distance. They focus only on themselves and their immediate desires, lacking any sense of delayed gratification, resilience, discipline, responsibility, or respect for boundaries. I do not think anyone is worse to date. I say this as someone who has my own mental health challenges and severe trauma. Not all mental health disorders are the same. Bipolar disorder is its own entity, as no one else's impulsivity and entitlement compare. Could be appealing to you if you desire a life akin to a permanent Vegas bender. Otherwise, I would not advise it. This person is not going to care for you when you are sick or old. Imagine. It may be different if the condition is very well managed for an extended period. However, as seen in my ex's case, just because they claim it is well managed does not necessarily mean it is true. Being in therapy and on medication does not automatically indicate well managed. Achieving stability takes time and commitment. Commitment is often foreign to individuals with bipolar disorder, and many will resist developing that trait until everyone they exploit abandons them, and they realize that respecting others is essential for survival. Many psychiatric treatments for more serious disorders are not very effective and require significant trial and error to find what works. Therefore, being in treatment does not guarantee remission. They could be lying, so you will agree to give them a chance. They have an intense intrinsic need for romantic partners because they are addicted to emotions and seek a caretaker. They are not looking for the right match and do not care if they are the right person for you. They simply want anyone who will agree to date them, disregarding the need to present themselves accurately up front. Story 45. I have speculated that my partner may have a mood disorder, but she has never been officially diagnosed. She can go from crying happy tears because she loves me so much to becoming irritated and upset in seconds when I ask her to repeat something she said that I didn't catch. At the beginning of our relationship, I would respond with anger, escalating the situation. However, it takes patience to remain calm. We communicate slowly and, at times, give each other space. We have been living together for almost 2 years now, and things are great. Whenever there are significant emotional swings, I either accept it or try to rationalize the emotions by analyzing what just happened. This usually provides perspective on the situation and helps to calm things down. Overall, I would say that 95% of the time, she is the sweetest, funniest, and most clever person I know. The remaining 5% is just part of the whole experience. I try to learn from each instance to improve my ability to handle it. Story 46. I want to thank you for all your posts. I have an ex-friend whom I strongly suspected had bipolar disorder. The experiences described here resonate with her. Thank you for the validation and clarity that have given me closure. Story 47. My first wife dealt with an untreated partner who used substances such as alcohol and illegal drugs to regulate moods. I have a lot of remorse over that and have apologized sincerely. I am now medicated and sober, which I did not achieve easily. I feel good and do not need these pills until it is too late. I am a much better partner, father, son, brother, and friend now that I understand, despite my dislike of needing medication because my brain isn't functioning properly, it is necessary. Story 48. It is exhausting at times. My experiences can lead to deep, dark, bottomless depressions that last 7 to 10 days and always have the same triggers. However, I seem to be addicted to these triggers, making it difficult to work around them. Fortunately, it only occurs every few months. Story 49. Insanity and incredible stress until they get their medications adjusted. Now it's as if she doesn't even have it. It took over a decade of adjustments to get the dosage just right. Story 50. I have become skilled at de-escalating situations. I try not to respond when she is feeling low, avoiding actions that could escalate tension or give her something significant to focus on. I just wait patiently. Usually, she is happy again within a few hours, sometimes a couple of days. The key is to avoid doing anything that would make the situation worse. She may say some hurtful things, so it is important to have resilience. I have previously made the mistake of escalating the situation, which means that once she is happy, she will still remember the things I said or did, making it harder for us to return to a good place together. Story 51. Hard, fun, sad, and depressing. All the emotions. My wife has type 2 diabetes, undiagnosed until her 7th year. She became serious about her medication a couple of years later, and now her condition is fairly balanced. The mania and depression have decreased, and we are just better at managing them. We have shown a lot of perseverance for each other. With 22 years together approaching, I am excited for the next 22 years. Story 52. I only had one best friend, and there have been problems related to him, but he was never at fault. It was either someone else's fault or due to his bipolar disorder or ADHD. He blamed me for feeling suicidal just because I confronted him about selfishly hurting someone. Not even because he hurt them, but because I confronted him. Story 53. I have a friend who is bipolar, and for months he has been depressed to the point of not seeing any reason to go on. I have to encourage him or he starts talking about energy, higher consciousness, and his ability to see through time, which I find difficult to handle. Story 54. I have bipolar 2, and I believe that being with someone else who also has bipolar disorder may not be successful. It may also be challenging with someone who does not have the condition. Individuals with bipolar disorder can be difficult to understand and may experience mood swings unexpectedly. It takes a strong and patient person to support someone like me. This experience is not suitable for everyone. It is important to think carefully and consider the implications before making a commitment to someone with bipolar disorder, regardless of whether it is type I or type 2. Can be a significant challenge. Story 55. Go for a walk and then sit down. Why is the sky blue? Why do trees have leaves? Why do we sweat when walking? Did you close the door when you were on mile 3? Sprint 1.5 miles and remember, yes, I locked it. Proceed to walk back to your partner. Where is your partner? You drove together an hour away. Story 56. It highly depends on the person, and the most important factor is whether they acknowledge their reality and work to manage it. Managing bipolar disorder goes well beyond medication. The only thing those with unmanaged bipolar disorder have in common is that it always gets worse with time. Story 57. It depends significantly on the individual case and how well it is managed. I know a few people with bipolar disorder. One individual is out of control, frequently missing their medication, which leads to intense manic episodes during which no one can reason with them. The other person is relatively stable most of the time. You wouldn't know they have bipolar disorder as it is very subtle. The last individual becomes violent during episodes, so it truly varies by person. Story 58. My partner and I both have bipolar disorder. I have type 1 and he has type 2. We are both on medications, so it is easy for us to hold each other accountable. We understand each other's symptoms of highs and lows. We maintain healthy, open dialogue about our mental health and check in when we feel that something is off. Story 59. Dealing with bipolar disorder is an ongoing and undeniable challenge I have faced in life. It affects everything. It involves constant irritability and walking on eggshells, never knowing which side of him you will encounter in any moment. I hope my kids understand their dad loves them and will do anything for them. But he also struggles with interactions, disarray, noise, and conversations, often insisting on being right. It is the highest highs and the lowest lows, like an unpredictable roller coaster you never expected to board, but now cannot exit without life-changing consequences. It encompasses both the best and the worst, and it is incredibly hard. Story 60. Can't relate. I'm the partner with bipolar disorder and a little obsessive-compulsive disorder because one seasoning is never enough for a good meal. Story 61. My wife had a mild case of bipolar disorder. After she was diagnosed, she realized that it was what her father had. The only thing he wanted from the doctor was medication for erectile dysfunction. The doctor tried to see if medication helped, but it was too strong for her. If she was having a bad day, she would tell me, "Not today." If her mood changed, she knew where to find me. When she was feeling well, she was a lot of fun, and when she wasn't, she just asked to be left alone. As someone who has experienced depression since childhood and who took a job where it felt like I was given medication before it pushed me to my limits with my supervisor, I can understand the struggle. That was before she became my supervisor, and I worked there for 4 years before retiring. I was having trouble working full-time anyway. Once I was out of that job, I no longer had to worry about harming her or myself. Even after 20 years, I still have bouts of depression, but not all the time. Story 62. She's not my partner, but I refer to her as my platonic soulmate. She is my best friend. Watching her go through the mood swings of bipolar disorder and not being able to do anything about it is really rough. She is treatment resistant, so I try my best to stay calm and ride the waves with her. When she is manic, I try to keep her grounded and make sure she is not spending all her money. I also stay up with her when she cannot sleep. She is on Geodon, so she does not experience many of these moments anymore. But when they occur, we try to talk things out as best as we can. During her depressive phases, where she has trouble with treatment, I sit with her and listen to anything she has to say, empathizing to the best of my abilities. It's all about listening to understand, not just to reply. Story 63. The only thing I learned from having a partner with bipolar disorder was that mania is not enjoyable because it is the experience of watching someone you love lose themselves. Always be patient with your loved ones. Story 64. My husband and I are both diagnosed but unmedicated. It's quite normal. We have learned how to cope with ourselves and with each other. It is important to support one another through difficult times and to feel good together. Story 65. My dad was undiagnosed, so growing up was an experience. I would casually mention Muhammad Ali, and he would buy ringside seats at Madison Square Garden. After a trip to Disneyland, he would route us to Canada. He had affairs all over the place and did not seem to care. I loved him, but it felt like living with a tornado. Story 66. The question should be what it is like living with bipolar disorder when your partner is not experiencing mental health issues. It is incredibly hard. I have had 3 failed marriages because of my mental health. In my last marriage, I spent a lot of time ensuring my partner understood my mental health before we got married. But it still failed because she could not comprehend the dark places I would go to during severe depression. If you want to be with someone who has mental health issues, you need to realize that mental health problems can make you selfish and cause you to put up walls. This is not because you are naturally that way, but because you are trying to survive with a mind that is in a very difficult place. When you are experiencing a manic episode, You may be a risk to yourself and those around you, with irresponsible thoughts and a distorted perception that does not consider the bigger picture or other people's emotions and feelings. Story 67. Life is too short to be in a relationship with someone like that. Took me years to learn the hard way. Never again. Story 68. Loving someone with bipolar disorder means experiencing emotional highs full of energy and lows that feel heavy. It's not easy, but with care, honesty, and support, the relationship can be real, deep, and worthwhile. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.